Should be okay. Okay, we're live on Facebook. All right, let's go. This needs to be angled down for her.
Hey, everybody, grab your seat. We're going to get started. Grab your seat. We have a very special speaker coming up. We're also broadcasting this one to Facebook. This is one of our only sessions we're broadcasting live right now. So if you go to the KO Facebook page, if you go to the Kary Oberbrunner Facebook page, we would love for you to broadcast this because we're gonna share the Web3 message with the world. So if you can all go to the Kary Oberbrunner Facebook page if you're on Facebook, we're broadcasting now, and please share this and tell your audience, why do I want you to do this? I think your audience is gonna lean on you as their tour guide to be Web3. So go ahead, again, once again, go to the Kary Oberbrunner Facebook page, share this with your audience and say, hey, I'm at ISC 22 and listen up because Medha is coming to town, all right? And folks, I just want to introduce her very briefly. Basically, I have the Blockchain Life podcast. Anyone listen to any of the episodes? Anyone? Yes, all right, fantastic. When Medha was my guest, in about 2 minutes, I said, oh my gosh, she needs to speak at our conference because she has a way of taking complex and making it simple. And some of us are like, what the heck is Web3? So let's give a warm welcome to Medha.
I'll set you up.
Thank you very much, Kary, and I'm really happy to be here. This has been an incredible conference, been amazing speakers already so far, so some big shoes to fill here. I'll try not to get psyched out by it. So I am Medha Parlikar. I am the Chief Technology Officer and one of the co-founders of Casper Labs. Casper Labs is a company that was founded to build a public blockchain. That blockchain is known as Casper. Before I built Casper with the help of our wonderful engineering team, I worked in Web2 companies. I guess that's what they're called now. I call them software as a service, cloud service, anything that runs in a browser, big complicated websites like Amazon or Salesforce. I worked at mp3.com, those of you that heard of mp3.com and digital music. I worked at Avalara. They do financial sales tax calculation. I worked at Adobe in their web analytics business unit. And in these organizations, I was a head of engineering, a senior director of engineering. I was responsible for quality. I was responsible for product. I was responsible for uptime for these large, not distributed, but centralized, if you will call them, products, right? These big, large computing platforms that provided a service or a technology for customers. We call that enterprise technology solutions, right? So that was my role. I did that for about 25 years before I fell into the blockchain rabbit hole in 2017, when a friend approached me for engineering leadership when a community was trying to build a blockchain and he needed somebody to manage the team. And I basically told him, I'm like, don't ask me to do sales and marketing, I can't do that. But I can lead an engineering team. If you need an engineering team that needs leadership, that's what you can call me. And so that's what he did. And I worked on that project for about 15 months. And then that project lost funding. They ran out of money. And the investors really wanted to see a solution through. And so they approached me to co-found Casper Labs on Halloween of 2018. And we're coming up on our fourth birthday now. It's very exciting. It's been a wonderful journey, and we have a lot more to do. So let's get into it then. So what is Web3? What exactly is this thing, right? So I want to start by saying that it's definitely a buzzword. When we talk about Web2, we think a lot, I tend to think a lot about interactive websites where you're just not being talked to, but websites where you can participate in the conversation. And there was this notion of Web 2 that got only richer with mobile, right? So when mobile became a thing, then Web 2 really started to permeate our lives and all the things that we were able to do thanks to the mobile device. Before that, you had some interaction with browser-based applications, but it was a lot less, right, with Web 2. And Web 1, you were just being talked to, right? So you would go to a website, you would read some information. That was Web 1. Web 2, now you can go to Medium and you can create an article. You can participate and actually create content. It's very easy for you to do. That's what Web 2 enables. So Web 3, where did this come from? So funny story, and we'll go into a little detail about how the structure of the communities are in Web 3 and how we are different from a lot of the communities out there, is Web 3 actually came from a name of a library, a software library called Web3.js. And so what the heck is Web3.js? Well, it's a piece of code that you can drop into your web application to talk to a blockchain. And specifically, it's really about talking to the Ethereum blockchain. And we'll talk a little bit about Ethereum and what Ethereum is and how it works and what Bitcoin is. But that's what Web3 is. That's where the name came from. So it kind of just grew up organically, and somebody decided to call anything that uses Ethereum a Web3 application. So when you hear the term Web3, that's the roots of the word. It's Web3.js coming from the Ethereum community. And it's been, a lot of things have been added to it to talk about the next evolution of what technology is going to do for us and how it's going to permeate our lives. So you'll hear a lot about artificial intelligence working with the blockchain. You'll hear a lot about virtual reality and the metaverse and the blockchain. And these are all things that use the blockchain technology to create immersive experiences. Now, we're going to focus really just on the blockchain technology, because that's my expertise, and that's what I'm going to try to demystify for you today. And we will have an opportunity for questions at the end of the session. So let's dig in. What is a blockchain? So the first thing to know about a blockchain is that it is a peer-to-peer network. What's a peer-to-peer network? So most networks you hear about today are what we call like a hub and spoke. Think of a bicycle wheel. You got a hub, and then you have a spoke. You have all the, right, so there's a central server, and everybody connects to that central server. You go to Amazon, you're talking to Amazon servers. You go to Google, you're talking to Google servers. Google controls those servers completely, right? Amazon controls those servers completely. It's a hub, and they provide a service, and it's a spoke. And this is the way software in the browser has been delivered for about 20 years. When you talk about a peer-to-peer network, you can think about BitTorrent. Who here is familiar with BitTorrent? So who here is familiar with Napster? Yeah, a lot of people know Napster. All right, so Napster was kind of like a peer-to-peer sharing network, right? There was more of a central server, so they were able to shut it down. But if you imagine, a peer-to-peer network is headless. It's a mesh. Peer-to-peer networks allow for people to participate when they want to and leave when they want to. This property is known as permissionlessness. And this is a new buzzword that you'll hear a lot about in blockchain. And permissionlessness, you can say, is I don't have to ask anybody to come or go. So I can join the network when I want to join it. I can leave the network when I want to leave it. And so there is this fluidity to permissionless peer-to-peer networks. Participants pop up, participants go away, right? This is the way BitTorrent works, and despite the RIA's best efforts in shutting down peer-to-peer content sharing, they can't shut down BitTorrent because it is not controlled by anybody. So people come, people go, people turn on their BitTorrent client and they turn off their BitTorrent client. And so there is a communication protocol, a networking protocol, that forms these peer-to-peer connections across the internet. So at the core, what you're seeing here, this is a peer-to-peer network. All of these computers can talk to each other, but you'll notice there's nothing in the middle. There's no central point of communication. So this is one of the core properties of a blockchain network. It is a peer-to-peer network. It needs internet connectivity in order to function. Doesn't matter what that connectivity is. It could be LTE on your phone. It could be Ethernet cable, dial up out of your house. Doesn't matter, but it needs internet connectivity. The second thing it needs a way for all of these computers in here to agree on something. They have to agree on something. What does that mean when we say agree on something? The buzz term for that, or the term that we use in blockchain, is called consensus. And it's called a consensus protocol. Who here has heard of proof of work? Proof of work is a type of consensus protocol. And to put it very simply, it's how all of these computers agree on something. And they solve it's a computer science theoretical problem called the Byzantine generals problem. And the Byzantine generals problem says this: how can I be sure if I have two armies that have to go fight someplace, how do I know that all of those generals are going to be honest and fight for me? I don't have any guarantees that if I have a change in strategy, if I send a messenger, I don't know that the messenger is going to get to the generals and tell them about the change of strategy. So how do I know that the generals are going to behave honestly? And we're not going to dig into the details of it, but in essence, what it means is I don't have any guarantees that these nodes are necessarily going to be honest. And this is a node, a computer, a node, right? A node is like a point in the network, a participant in the network, a computer in the network. When we talk about this generically, we're talking about it as a node. So what consensus protocols do is they, through a variety of mechanics, ensure that all the nodes are going to be honest and they're going to follow the protocol honestly. And they're able to do that even if messages are not necessarily exchanged between them. So we know that the internet doesn't always, it hangs. There's times when I have to reload my website. Sometimes I can't, right? I don't have connectivity on my phone, right? So the internet doesn't guarantee that it's always going to deliver those messages. So these consensus protocols have to be robust enough that given that these actors maybe are not honest, given that these actors may not deliver messages to each other, somehow they still manage to agree. So that's a consensus protocol. And broadly speaking, there's two categories of consensus protocols. One we've discussed is proof of work. This one has gotten a lot of attention lately because it is very energy heavy. It uses a lot of electricity in order to secure the network. In proof of work, in order to participate in the protocol, they have to solve a puzzle. And in order to solve that puzzle, it takes a lot of CPU. And they just churn through trying to solve that puzzle. And because they churn through trying to solve that puzzle that's expensive, now they're not going to do something dishonest. Because if they do something dishonest, they got to throw it all away. And so that's how that keeps them honest. But that's really expensive, and it converts electricity arguably into Bitcoin, right? This is what Bitcoin believers talk about, is that Bitcoin is very efficient in converting electricity into something valuable, which is a Bitcoin. The other type of consensus protocol, and all of the newer protocols are using this, is called proof of stake. So what's proof of stake? So if you think of stake as in, I'm going to stake my reputation on this. It's the exactly the same term. It's a financial buy-in. You need to buy in before you can become a participating node in the network. In Bitcoin, to do that, you have to invest a lot of electricity and you have to invest a lot of hardware. So the computers that participate in Bitcoin are very, very, very beefy. They're expensive. They're massive, massive mining rigs, and you can't run it in a cloud system. You can't run it virtually. You have to buy physical equipment, and then you have to hook up a lot of energy, and that costs a lot of money. So in proof of stake networks, they swap it out and say, well, instead of buying all that equipment, you just got to put up some financial capital. And then if you don't behave honestly, they take the protocol will slash your financial capital. So you have an incentive to behave honestly. So those are the two broad consensus protocols. Now, there's a whole bunch of different types of networks. We'll go into some more detail. Broadly, there's a lot of different networks that do a lot of different things. So what does Bitcoin do? Bitcoin network does exactly one thing. Does anybody know what the Bitcoin network does? The Bitcoin network only keeps track of who has how much Bitcoin. That's it. It doesn't do anything else. So if Alice wants to send Bob some Bitcoin, they send that transaction to the Bitcoin network, and it records the transaction, and the Bitcoin goes from Alice to Bob. That's all it does. It doesn't do anything else, okay? The Ethereum network, on the other hand, does a lot more. Ethereum is a computer, right? So if you imagine here when we talk about the ledger in Bitcoin, the ledger literally reads like your bank statement, except the difference is you have different addresses, right? Different account numbers that have different amounts of Bitcoin in each block, each page in the ledger of Bitcoin. In Ethereum, each of these nodes don't keep track of just a ledger, they also can run computer programs. These computer programs are called smart contracts. They're not really smart, they're just computer programs. That's really all smart contracts are. The only difference between smart contracts and computer programs is that smart contracts run on the Ethereum blockchain network. It's the only difference. It's one of the big differences, but it's one of the only difference. And fundamentally, when you boil it all down and keep it simple, a smart contract is a computer program that runs on a blockchain network. And so let's say, for example, the most basic computer program is one that prints hello world to the screen. And a lot of computer programmers start off with their first hello world, right? And so you write your program and then you compile it and then you run it and it prints up hello world on the screen. And you're like, great, I was able to say hello world. A hello world program on the Ethereum network would write hello world to the ledger. And that hello world would go into a block. And when you looked at the block, you could see that, oh, somebody wrote hello world to the Ethereum blockchain ledger. It's exactly the same thing. The difference is that the result of running the program is what gets written and recorded to the ledger. So this opens up a lot of really interesting possibilities. Because if you think about what a blockchain network brings, it brings trust, right? What is the purpose of a blockchain protocol? It is to help establish trust in a multi-party transaction. That means when two or more people want to transact, if you use the blockchain, you can now transact without needing an intermediary or a third person involved. So what's a problem like that where you have to have two people that don't trust each other or don't know each other that have to transact? Well, that happens all the time. And who are the intermediaries? A great example, if I want to sell my house, it's an escrow agent. If I want to buy a loaf of bread, it's my bank with my debit card. That's establishing that trust between myself and the grocer, right? If I'm buying a car, it's going to be the leasing company that's going to establish that trust. Now you can imagine, well, what if you could just use a system like this to do it? What are the benefits, right? Well, for one, it's going to be faster. It's going to be more secure, and it's going to be cheaper, right? We hear a lot about, companies doing things that are not okay, right? Things that, like, sometimes they're cooking their books, sometimes they are, making arbitrary decisions, perhaps, but versus some agreed upon, set of rules that they should abide by, right? And the blockchain is very agnostic that way. It doesn't care who you are. It's just technology, right? So it will be the intermediary in a very neutral manner. So you can solve problems like the SWIFT problem, where it takes 3 days to send money from one country to the other. On the Bitcoin network, you can make that happen within 8 to 12 hours. And it doesn't matter if you're sending $1 or $1 million, the Bitcoin network doesn't care. It doesn't charge you more fees if I'm going to send $1 million or if I'm going to send $10, because the network doesn't care. To the network, it's the exact same weight of a transaction, right? Whereas in the traditional financial systems, they charge you more for more money. The Bitcoin network doesn't charge you more if you're sending more Bitcoin. To the Bitcoin network, it's one transaction either way. It's going to have a fixed cost. So in a nutshell, that's a blockchain. And the benefits is that it's a trust layer. The reason it's a trust layer is because none of these parties know each other. They can come and go as they want without talking to each other. And they all independently validate those transactions without talking to each other. So imagine right now, you have an auditor at your bank that's going through the bank's records, but you got one guy, two guys, maybe you've got one company. But in the Bitcoin network, if there's 1,000 nodes in the Bitcoin network, that transaction is executed 1,000 times, completely independently. Every single computer runs all the transactions independently of one another, so that auditability is baked in. And that becomes extremely, extremely valuable when you think of the amount of time and energy and money that is spent on not trusting each other, validating and auditing the work of others, validating and auditing these kinds of transactions, right? Imagine a system that is just baked in. That you can just look at the ledger and this thing's been run 1,000 times, this thing's been run 10,000 times by people that don't know each other. Completely neutral. So that's blockchain. That's the benefit of blockchain. That's what the blockchain is, and that forms the basis of Web3. So we'll dig in more about these networks. So really important point here, blockchain is not crypto. So you can have a blockchain without crypto, but you can't do the converse. You can't have crypto without a blockchain. And why is that? Because you need the blockchain technology to provide the underpinning trust upon which you can transact things of value. Right? So if you have something really valuable, you want to secure it. And the blockchain technology will allow you to secure it. Can you use blockchain without cryptocurrency? Absolutely. Businesses are using blockchain all the time, and there's no cryptocurrency involved whatsoever. They're still getting the benefits of auditability, the workflow, the trustlessness, and those guarantees without using crypto at all. In proof of stake networks, you do need some crypto to secure the network. That's that buy-in, right? That financial buy-in for those public networks. So in that one instance, you need it. You need it for that utility. But if you are wanting to build something that involves the global ledger, you don't necessarily need to involve crypto whatsoever. So let's talk a little bit about these different kinds of networks. We've talked about a public, permissionless, decentralized network. So a public, permissionless, decentralized network, an example is Bitcoin. Another example is Ethereum. Another example is Casper. These networks operate by random people all over the world. People can come and go from them as they choose. They have no head. Nobody's in control. The nodes could be anywhere in the world, running on any kind of system. They could run an AWS cloud. They could run in somebody's basement. The protocols don't care where the systems are run. They just need internet connectivity. That's the only thing they need. What you're seeing here is what we call a consortium network. What's a consortium network? So Hyperledger is a big enterprise blockchain. The Hyperledger system doesn't have any crypto in it. And a lot of banks and organizations are using Hyperledger because it gives them a lot of features that are important to them, like control. They need to have some control over their systems because they're subject to heavy regulatory requirements, so they have to have control. But here you can see a depiction of a mixed system where you've got some banks that are operating some of the nodes, and you've got some entities, some individual entities operating nodes, and this is how they establish trust. You could, in theory, say, this is Citibank, this is JP Morgan Chase, this is Bank of America, this is Wells Fargo, and then maybe these are payment processors. Maybe this is PayPal, maybe this is Venmo, maybe this is Capital One. And they agree that we're going to run a blockchain network together. We're going to share this data. We're going to process transactions on this blockchain because it's more efficient for us to establish trust in this blockchain network, right? And we can agree on transactions in this blockchain network. So this is the second type of a network. This is called a consortium. These are consortium networks. The last one you're seeing here is a private network. These are pretty small networks. They can run anywhere from 5 to 10 nodes in the network. Again, they are peer-to-peer, but they're controlled by one entity. That entity is using this private network specifically for their business purpose. They may be able to use smart contracts that are really, really convenient, like NFTs. So they need that smart contracting capability. They need the audit trail that the blockchain provides, but maybe they need less security and more privacy, right? So let's talk a little bit about the security. We talked about blockchain giving us trust. And that trust comes from what factors? Permissionlessness. People can come and go whenever they want and nobody's in charge. Decentralized, meaning the network is spread over a large geographic area, right? And people can come and go and you don't know who is running these nodes. And they all have to agree. So it's really resilient to change. That's a public decentralized permissionless network. The security guarantees of this are very, very high, which is why you see Bitcoin being worth trillions of dollars. The security guarantees in the Bitcoin network are extremely high. These consortium networks have a much lower level of security. Why is that? Well, they can collude. They can easily form a cabal. And they can agree outside of the blockchain protocol that they're going to do whatever they want. So the security guarantees of a consortium are significantly lower. Does it mean it's not beneficial? No, because there's still some benefit to be had, right? You still get faster transaction speeds, you still get less paperwork, you still get a higher audit trail, you still have, in the members of the consortium, competitors that are now collaborating. This is a good thing. But the security guarantees are not as great as a public decentralized permissionless network, right? And of course, the lowest security guarantee is going to be a private network, right? The private network, there are no guarantees. They can choose to rewrite and make changes to the blockchain as they wish, right? It's wholly controlled by a company, individually, internally. You're right, you don't have any visibility into what's happening on the private blockchain whatsoever. So the security guarantees of a private blockchain are pretty low. But maybe if you want to offer, coupons for your customers and NFT coupons for your customers, it's still a lot easier than clipping something out of the newspaper, right? It's still a lot more efficient. And you can still create things like NFTs on private networks and deliver that value to your consumer and your customer, and that's still a good thing. It's just not as secure as your public decentralized networks. So let's talk a little bit about Casper. Casper is a blockchain that myself and my team built. It's a public, permissionless, decentralized network. It has its own token that secures the network and helps to pay for transactions on the network. We founded Casper in 2018. Casper Labs is the company that I'm the CTO of, who built the Casper network. It launched with a community of validators. They're node operators. They operate the nodes in the network. There's a large community, right? We didn't really talk about the communities around these networks, right? So there's a Bitcoin community that has a very specific personality. There's the Ethereum community that has a very specific personality, right? So all of these public networks, they have their own communities. They're like these little nations that have a very much a shared culture, shared belief systems, shared thinking, right? And they all collaborate to support the health and the development of the network. So how's Casper different than a lot of the protocols? Well, Ethereum is a public decentralized protocol. This is where a lot of the NFT innovation happened. This is where the decentralized finance innovation happened. And this community has a very traditional, like very typical personality. It's very interesting personality, the Ethereum community. They really believe in decentralization and what we call immutability. Immutability means you can't change anything on the blockchain. That's the whole point of the blockchain, right? You get a guarantee that, hey, once Alice gives Bob that Bitcoin, Alice can't take it back. That transaction's done, it's committed, it's on the blockchain. There's no going back from it. If Alice loses her keys until she finds her keys, her Bitcoin's lost, right? There's good sides and bad sides to immutability. But immutability means once a transaction is committed to the blockchain, you cannot reverse it. On Ethereum, they actually believe the contract code should also be immutable. So once I create a program and I put it on the Ethereum blockchain, I can never change it. Changing it is very, very difficult. This is a big distinction between Casper and the Ethereum blockchain. In Casper, we believe the future is unwritten. So I can make changes to the code on the chain, right? If I'm supporting customers, I mean, all software has got to get upgraded. Can you imagine the first version of Windows if you were stuck with that? Right? I don't even use Windows despite as many times as they've made upgrades. But you have to upgrade software. Software's never done. So I believe that even smart contracts on the blockchain, you need to be able to upgrade it. So that's a core difference between Casper and Ethereum. It's also one of the reasons why businesses use hyperledgers, because they need to be able to do things like upgrade their contracts. They need to decide who's going to do what on the blockchain. This is another feature of Casper where you can specify who has what rights, who can do what things. There's a lot of really interesting capabilities around the cryptographic keys, which we didn't talk about, which is a big challenge. We'll get into that later. So that's Casper, and Casper Labs helps companies use blockchain because we believe that the next wave of adoption is going to happen through companies. It's going to happen through service providers. It's going to happen, the benefits to consumers will happen through these entities. There will be a huge opportunity for decentralized applications that truly enable content creators to directly disintermediate, like basically cut out the middleman. Right? Where you can connect directly with your consumers, where you can directly incentivize your consumers or directly communicate with your community and connect with your community. But I believe that trust is also established outside of the blockchain, right? So do I trust this provider? Do I trust a smart contract? These are some of the big questions that need to be answered, right? And we believe that enterprises are going to help lead the way. So that's a little bit about Casper. So let's dig into the history of blockchain. Wow, I'm going a little over here. So Bitcoin was founded in 2008, and Ethereum was founded in 2014. And the first big hack was Mt. Gox, where they lost a bunch of private keys. It was a really big problem. 2017, we saw the first bull run. And between 2018 and 2019, we saw crypto winter. And Casper was born out of crypto winter, right? We created Casper. We founded Casper in 2018 in the middle of a bear market. And now in 2020, we start seeing the rise of DeFi, we start seeing the rise of NFTs, and we start seeing a lot of really exciting new innovation happening 10 years, 12 years after the Bitcoin white paper was first published by Satoshi Nakamoto. So looking into the future, what does it look like in 2023 and beyond? So we are seeing a lot of customers that want to use NFTs to do brand marketing. They want to use NFTs to do trace and track with supply chain. I know I've been using the term NFT. Does everybody know what NFT stands for? Non-fungible token. Does everybody know what fungibility is? No. Okay. So a non-fungible token is a token that is indivisible. So we're all sitting on chairs here. If you break that chair up into 100 pieces, can you buy food with it? Cannot. That chair is non-fungible. If you have a gold coin, if you break the gold coin into 100 pieces, can you use it to buy food? Yes, you can. Fungibility refers to an object's ability to retain value even when it is broken into smaller pieces. So now that we know what a non-fungible token can represent, you'll see that a non-fungible token can virtually represent everything in the world around us. They can represent unique items, collectible items, intellectual property, the right to purchase something, like for example, an access token. They can be used to represent KYC or an individual, that I have cleared some level of authorization. Now I have this special NFT. They can represent digital certificates. I completed a course. I graduated from high school. They can represent birth records, death records, your home, right? All of these things can be represented as non-fungible tokens. Arguably, even homes can be considered fungible if you want to do real estate investment trusts. You want to own a piece of a home. So there's some really interesting things you can do in terms of fractal estate, right? Where items that were previously considered non-fungible could potentially now be considered fungible, right? Because in the real world, they're not fungible, but now I can own a piece of something without having to own the whole thing. Which, talk about translating it, what is the benefit to society? Well, maybe I can't own the whole home, but I can, own a portion of it, right? Maybe I can participate in, a cooperative housing arrangement, right? Where I can be one of the investors and benefit from that. And I don't have to put in $100,000, but I can start small. Maybe I can go through $1,000, right? And being able to fractionalize these assets and make them more accessible and more available. So looking forward in 2023, what are some of the cool things that can happen with non-fungible tokens for consumer grade applications? Well, there's already a lot of work being done around coupons and offers. So as an example, I perform some action and I get this coupon. This is a really cool thing. I can now redeem that coupon if I want to, but that NFT, I can also, it stays in my wallet. And the retailer doesn't know anything about me, they just know my wallet address. They just know my address on the blockchain. And so if I choose to go to their website and I choose to sign into their website with my wallet, they could drop me more offers if I wanted to let them drop me more offers. And then I can redeem those offers real time. I don't have to go to my email and copy a code. Where's that email? What's that code? What's that rebate code again? I can't find it. Right. Don't have to do that. Don't have to share my email and get a bunch of spam. I don't have to necessarily see what's stored in my blockchain address, right? It's not coming into my email. So really wonderful experiences that can happen with websites for offers, something as simple as that, right? Simple things like KYC and your personal information. You can encrypt your personal information and store it securely with yourself and only reveal those pieces of information that are really important. Am I over 21? Do I have the sufficient credit score needed in order to purchase this financial product? I don't have to give them my social security number. I don't have to give them my home address. I don't have to give them all of my personal information in order to prove my credit worthiness, right? This is what we call proof technology, where you can prove your creditworthiness without releasing or revealing all of your information. And this self-sovereignty is really, really important as part of blockchain technology. This is one of the things that really enables. It's very, very exciting being able to offer more self-sovereignty. When you hear people talk about Web3 is all about individualism and individual identity, that's what they're talking about, is that the blockchain will enable you to hold on to your information and reveal a cryptographic proof that you are who you say you are, that you have a driver's license issued by Ohio or California or wherever, and that you're over the age of 21 without revealing anything beyond that, because they don't need to know, and they don't want to know, right? It's a liability for them. So enterprises are very excited about this capability. So now, with that, I'm going to open up for questions. If anybody has any questions, feel free to hit me. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
This is to help understand the market book and real estate. In France, there's an organization.
Come on up here, Marianne. Come on up.
I was going to repeat it, but yeah, this way, come up. It's better. Yeah.
And make it clear, concise, and direct.
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
Okay, in France, there is an organization that allows anyone, like any one of us, to own a piece of a castle. Would that be like blockchain? So, I mean, I almost did it as a present to someone. And the proceeds then go to renovate these castles. But it could be hundreds of thousands of people owning that castle. Would that be like blockchain, or are you familiar with that?
So it is like blockchain, but you wouldn't need the organization in the future. The organization could be a decentralized organization that is run by the members that participate. So right now, that organization and the service they're providing is still a central entity. They provide all of the paperwork, administration, basically the work to do the renovations, and any profits or any benefits that go to the individuals would be administered by that entity. What the blockchain does is it removes that entity completely. And so then what happens is the blockchain is the smart contracts on chain, on the blockchain, are the ones that it's where you would send your money to the contract. The contract itself, through voting of the members that are participating in that contract, would then distribute the funds to the castle. And that would be administered off-chain in terms of the work happening on the castle. But then anything that comes back in from the castle would come back into the smart contract, and those dividends would be distributed fairly to all the participants in the system. And that's like a decentralized autonomous organization, or a DAO. It's a community-driven initiative. Yes?
Would there have to be an owner, someone?
Is there an owner of the contract? No, there isn't necessarily an owner of the contract. Yeah, these are decentralized autonomous organizations run by the community directly. This is what's actually very prevalent right now on the Ethereum blockchain. These are called DAOs.
Love it, love it. You got one right here.
Okay.
Can you read
So the
that?
question is, was the merger of Ethereum for proof of stake a possible mistake, especially if it was for reduced energy consumption? So this is a great question. This is a big debate that's happening in the Ethereum community. There was a lot of pressure on Ethereum to reduce its energy footprint, but now as a result, there has been what we call centralization of Ethereum, because now a lot of the stake is controlled by very large wallet holders or exchanges that hold a lot of Ethereum. And so there's a lot of debate on whether or not the moving to proof of stake was beneficial for Ethereum, because it didn't speed up the Ethereum blockchain, right? The thinking was that Ethereum would become a lot faster, a lot more reasonable, a lot less expensive with the move to proof of stake, but that did not happen, right? They just removed now the permissionless, not permissionless, anybody can still join, but it is harder now.
Awesome. Tony.
So there's no doubt that you have a perspective on this world that is much bigger than probably anybody in this room. What is your vision for what the world is going to become in the next 5 years because of this technology?
So my vision is that We want to make accessible blockchain technology for consumers by enhancing the goods and services and offerings that are available today, right, exponentially, right? So a very simple example is if you use NFTs for coupons, you can have smaller bespoke products being able to offer couponing technology, coupons for their products. They will have a bigger platform to be able to, rise up and compete with national brands, right? It's a great leveling field. I love the idea of it leveling the playing field for smaller brands and individuals by using this technology to create communities around their products, goods, and services by using the underlying blockchain tech.
One quick question.
Yes.
So we chatted last night, Sarah, Medha, and I, and you have a husband who's interested in publishing, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. And we're going to all love on him once we meet him. But we even talked about, your words were strong words, but true. Amazon rapes authors in terms of royalties. And why don't you even talk a little bit about the possibilities for authors with blockchain technology, including, accessibility and these types of things, because they'll love that stuff, and even IP.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. So what we talked about yesterday is this idea that, well, what if you put your intellectual property in a secure minted environment and you would issue an NFT token to anybody that purchased your book that grants them access to your material? Why is this interesting? Well, one, you don't need Amazon. You could just sell your book for a cryptocurrency directly using the blockchain. Number two, you can completely control access to your intellectual property through the NFT. So you could rent your book for a day or a week. At the end of a week, you could burn the NFT token and they don't have access anymore. They never get to download the content because you stored it in a secure minting environment. So they would be a view-only access through whatever tools. And that's possible today. This isn't new technology, right? If you use Apple Music and you don't pay your subscription, well, they reach in and they rip out all the music that you may have downloaded. You don't have access to it. So this is technology that already exists, right? But what the blockchain allows you to do is cut Amazon out, right? Because you can establish a one-to-one relationship with your customers. You can issue them an NFT that's an access token. And you can decide that, well, if they talk about the NFT or they share with 5 or 6 of their customers or friends, well, maybe they get early access. You can give a different kind of NFT. Say, oh, this person is really viral. I'm going to give them a different NFT that gives them early access to my next book, or gives them a discount. Or if they have 5 or 6 of my books, I can see that because it's all in their wallet, and then I can issue them a discount on my next book. Or maybe early access to a conference I'm hosting or a book signing, right? So there's a lot you can do with this technology without necessarily knowing anything about the individual. They still maintain their sovereignty, right? You're not necessarily holding their personal information. You don't have any of that PII liability. You don't have to worry about knowing where they live and it not leaking on the internet, or any of those things, right? All you need to have is their web wallet. And, I was telling Kary, you should just go ahead and build this thing. But basically a publishing interface, with a secure minting environment where authors can then go ahead and push their content there. It controls access. It allows them to issue NFTs, to do sales, to collect revenues, right? And even with smart contracts, you can even share, right? You can share royalties. You can do royalty-based NFTs. A lot of interesting things you can do. But this is just one example where you can literally cut Amazon out of the middleman and establish your own communities directly.
Secrets, hold on. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. How many of you are like, man, I wish I could talk to her more? Anybody? Okay, a few of you. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're going to close this session, but we're going to actually open up a bonus session during lunch. And so I was going to talk about firing workshops, but I think this is more relevant because she's going to catch a plane in an hour, and she is amazing and has a ton of value. So what I'll do is let's give her a huge round of applause. Okay. And I want to make sure you can see her contact information, because that's huge. So let's go back to that. Where was that here?
That's it's
You see it?
here. Oh, I see.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna open up your PDF here.
Okay, yeah.
So Chris, let's bring that puppy back on, okay? All right. And we'll go to the last slide so you can all see that. So if anyone says, hey, I want to follow her on Twitter, LinkedIn, I see a lot of phones blowing up here. Fantastic. There's her great hello@casperlabs.io email. Okay. So thank you, and you stick around, okay?
I will
all
be
right,
here.
you
I will
stick
be here.
around
I will be
real
here.
close because
All
we'll
right.
bring you right back up in a
Okay.
second.
Sounds good.
Awesome. So, folks, Medha gave us a great framework, and the rest of the conference, we're going to actually, now that you know some of the tools and principles, we're going to get into massive practical application where you can say like, okay, that was great. Now, how does this work tomorrow when somebody wants to hire me for coaching? And we're going to show you incredible things. Okay. So that's really, we needed to build a foundation first. We're going to have one quick announcement. Jay, come on up. Jay is one of, let's give Jay a hand. Yeah.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah.
What's up? What's going on? Hi.
Yes. Do you think I could get away wearing this?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
It's all about belief, man. It's all about confidence.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know?
So what are you speaking on? Because you're one of the breakout speakers who wasn't able to share. And Chaz, I'm going to give you 1
Right.
minute in a second too.
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking about how to have luscious hair. So, no, good morning. How are you all feeling this morning? We good? Good. Hey, my job really is to show you and teach you how to sell you personal branding. Who thinks having a social media, having a personal brand probably helps you to get more people to know you, like you, trust you, right? There's a reason why I don't know you, right? And there's probably a reason why you don't know me. It's because not enough people see who we are and what we do. So I'm a publicist in Miami. I live in Miami, and I teach people and show people how to leverage social media, how to get more people to know you, like you, and trust you. Because if more people trust you, guess what? They're going to buy your book, they're going to buy your course, they're going to come to a conference and look at anything that you buy or purchase in life. It's usually the person, not the product. So if I can share with you and show you and give you a blueprint of what you need to do today to actually get results, even if you're shy, even if you're an introvert, even if you're not one of those people on camera, you don't really want to put yourself out there, I'm going to show you how to do it today because everyone has a story. That's why people work with Kary. Everyone has a message. It's just your job to tell the world and to do it with authenticity. So come and see me today, JJ Live, personal branding, 2 o'clock.
Awesome. Good job. Good job. Chaz Frutel, come on up. Chaz is our last 1 minute example, and a lot of you know Chaz, and he's doing fantastic things. And then we'll do a quick lunch break. And come on up, my friend. What are you going to be talking about? You got 1 minute.
Well, everybody that knows me knows 1 minute is not a good thing for me. But over 90% of people in this world do not know who they are, don't have a purpose in their lives. Okay, studies show 90% over. We created an organization called Noble, a network of owners, business leaders, and entrepreneurs. And our whole purpose is we have a goal, vision, in the next 2 years to bring 1,000 additional people through Noble to understand what their purpose and vision is in their life, with their families, with their communities, with their businesses, with their leadership. Okay. And so Noble has already gone international. We're excited about that. And we're just very pleased to work with Kary and the opportunity to share with you today. And maybe how you might be able to help us with that, being a guest speaker for us, being a leader for us to others, those kind of things. And so we're very excited to bring this opportunity not only to Central Ohio, but to the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, magic stuff happened last time Chaz was here. In fact, the Sherry and Lee, where are you? That he connected you, and now you're launching your nonprofit and amazing stuff. So here's the rules for lunch. Basically, you're going to exit here. We have, in a second, hold on. We have 4 lines, meaning that there's 2 but you can use each side. You get that? That was good math, right? Yeah. And we have inside eating, patio eating. And then if you want to come back and hear Medha and I talk about Web3 and kind of practical applications, come on back in the room and make that happen. Otherwise, enjoy. All right. So head right out, follow Tony, and thank you very much. We'll see you. Choose your breakouts at 1 o'clock sharp. You have 4 choices. If you have questions, go online, ignitingsoulsconference.com, click schedule, and you can see all of the breakouts.
If you collaborate on any of that stuff, I'll bet on it.
Yeah, okay, okay. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Yeah, come right back in here. Yep. I'm going to set up 2 stools. Good job. Crystal.
I know, I was
Oh, no internet connection. Never mind. Totally fine. Totally feels you.
Are you bad?
Try all of it.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, my because I think
Yeah, so you're here. You're ready. All right. So you're on stage.
like smart.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. Good. So what you think of Medha?
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, she's taking brings the weight down. Yeah. So who else? Here.
When I do it,
Yeah.
it's check. I don't know if that's
Yes.
really working.
Yeah, you'll see that on Sunday. Sunday, yeah, because it's Jewish and stuff. So
Yeah,
I think-
yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
big,
You did.
Are you good with reviews?
Yeah. Sunday, I can get here. I was like flights midday, so I just do.
Okay. Well, so, yeah.
Okay, here's the breakouts. Okay. And then I went to schedule.
Yeah, so are you ready for the retreat stuff?
So, yeah, so really the talk is more like learning psychology.
That's cool.
And one of my favorite is the chat as a teacher to get your students or just anybody in general that gets your message.
I like it.
Yeah, and then it's that would be fun. So a lot of it is like tailored to everyone about learning and teaching, keeping attention. Whether it's marketing, whether it's
That's cool. So like
the next
Web3
breakout is
focuses that.
yeah. The end is like how to do that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the end piece is like the last time, like what is the other doing? Is like the financials behind what's happening in the industry. Like first, let's try to connect with last week.
Oh, yeah.
Gave some pretty financial back.
Yeah. Wow. And you can promote.
Yeah, we don't have a trailer.
That's okay, but I'm like, you just even
Yeah, the
talking
last is
about
like
it.
I'm gonna talk about what
Yeah.
you're creating.
Yeah, that would be cool. And even just talk about how, like, hey, Kary's gonna have events. I'm all for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you need anything while you're here, just text me.
Oh, I'm fine. Yeah.
I'll put a team in. Okay.
Well, thanks, Kary. Yeah.
Okay. I'm still live. I just got to shut one thing down. No. So we're gonna hit your restaurant up big time tomorrow.